a number of platforms. So if you follow me on social media, you can find me at Brittany CT or Brittany Campbell-Turner on LinkedIn, and you can actually get this same recording live in any of those platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But essentially, we talk about many different aspects of construction, primarily talking about what is this culture shift that we're considering, and then how does technology fit into that. So we actually founded the Prop Tech Club here on Clubhouse, and we talk about all of those things throughout the week. We have a couple of days that where we typically meet, but yeah, we're just excited to join this club. And to Gloria's point, we cross pollinate a lot of similar conversations, and I think we can help each other out here. But that's a little bit about me. I work in workplace. I've worked as the owner's rep for a long time. I'm now on the owner's side, and I selfishly love this topic because I love uncovering all the pains that people are experiencing by working in this industry, and maybe answering some questions as to why they exist and how we can get around them. So that's about me and the topic. So, Marcus, did you want to go ahead and give an introduction to yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Turner. I am super passionate about shared risk, shared reward contracting within construction, um, setting up the team first and focusing on the team. I'm also very interested in the knowledge transfer as generations are moving out of the construction space and filling that knowledge gap. We need to learn from our previous generations and not commit the same mistakes that we've done so in the past.
Sweet. Thanks, Marcus. All right, so I know Yosef, and you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself. I know Gloria kicked us off, but I want to at least give you the opportunity. And Michael, you are not a newcomer to our rooms, and you also host a room on Wednesdays as well. So if you guys could give introductions for yourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. It's great to collaborate because that's what all construction's about. I mean, I think every industry that's what it's about. You can't go at it alone. I've spent the past 20 years in construction, a lot of offshore renewable projects, onshore renewable projects, so offshore wind, onshore solar, biogas, a large, very large infrastructure projects. And then I went off independent 4 years ago to act as an engineer and consultant within the construction industry, also acting as owner's representative, and just trying to help the space improve, trying to bring the knowledge from a lot of larger organizations down to the smaller individual independent workspace. And just, as you said, it's great to be able to learn from previous mistakes and also best practices and how we make things better. I mean, construction at the end of the day, we want to try it with, there's a lot of pressure in construction to bring things in cheaper and more effective and use technology. And that's what I'm trying to do, is bridge the gap, just like we all are, just trying to bridge the gap between how do we make things efficient, how do we cut out the waste, how do we keep everybody happy. So it's great to share this space and learn some more. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Yosef. Michael.
Yeah, hey Brittany, hey Marcus, Joseph, and Gloria. Hey, thanks for having me on stage today, and once again, great to be in the room with everybody. I'm Mike Trampetti. Kind of in the same as Joseph. I spent about you know 15 years with Bechtel. I kind of learned everything that I know today from them. And the same thing that Joseph wanted to pass all that off. My specialty is really in the infrastructure side of the house. Anything from telecoms to now EV charging stations, et cetera. And so basically kind of helping build out the infrastructure today. So especially we had talked before about bridging the digital divide. Key fact, for example, right now there's about $1.1 trillion being poured into fiber that's going to help connect us all the way to fiber from the homes. So there's a lot of infrastructure that has to be built in the U.S. and we've seen recently the package that's coming out they're trying to work on, and so a lot of that is helping companies scale to meet that demand. So we have everything that we rely on today. So I'm Mike, and I'm done speaking.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joseph and Mike. Well, let's go ahead and get this conversation started. I really, really am passionate about this topic because I've supported owners over the years. And we have a lot of challenges that face us internal to our organizations that trickle down to projects. And so, what I'd love to do, and we've been having these conversations on Tuesdays in the prop tech room. Um, we have been discussing what pains people have been experiencing that are caused by owners. So I wanted if anybody here is who was on stage already, specifically has an experience. You don't have to say who the owner is that you'd like to speak to, so that maybe you can get some insight on or think about how. We can maybe help you hurdle that the next time around, or how to even just talk with your owner about, okay, well, this is what I experienced. Let's see how we can work together in order for it to improve down the road, that kind of thing. And we have a number of ways we can talk about it, from the lean construction standpoint, from a contracting standpoint, procurement, to technology. We can talk about it from all those perspectives, and there's a lot of knowledge on this stage. Um, so I just want to open it up. If anybody has a specific example of what they've experienced as an owner caused pain.
I can go. I'll go first. There's a couple of things. One of them is changes, constant changes, and now what I've gone is I go in at the beginning and tell the owners, if you want you want your project to stick to budget and to time, longer for you to do the design. Make sure that you get everything covered in the design phase, because once you go to construction and start changing things, it's a way more expensive. So I really let them know up front. And then there's also the lack of knowledge when it comes to construction. So I've dealt with a lot of owners that very green when it comes to construction, and the lack of knowledge and assumptions that they make as part of the project. And really, that's, as the owner's representative and project manager, is to educate them. And it's all a matter of how much information you give them, and how many emails you copy them into before they, because they're uneducated when it comes to construction. They're very good at what else they do, but when it comes to construction, they don't really know the process and the flows of how things, especially I get involved with developments right from the start. So when you go to the city and you've got to, you know, complete your design, and then you've got to get your permitting, it's a special art, and they don't really know that process. So it's education, but it can be very frustrating at times, because they get frustrated with the time it takes, and I think it's just them that the city's having a go at. And I'm like, no, it takes 18 months to get permits. That's just the way it is, and there's not really much that you can do to speed things up. So those are the kind of issues I have, especially at the upfront of a project. I am done speaking.
Joseph, that's so common. The changes that trickle down from a decision making standpoint and from a design perspective, 100% flow to everybody on the project. Um, so yeah, I think that's a great topic to kick us off with. Um, I don't know anybody who hasn't experienced the trickle down effect, a result of changes that owners have made. Matter of fact, I've made them myself, and sometimes it's related to business decisions that have nothing to do with the project, that kick off changes for the project itself, and can be really challenging, especially if those decisions are made midway. Um, so I would love if anybody has a specific example of a terrible change that they've experienced that has really, really impacted them. That would be really great to hear.
I do.
Go ahead, Kim.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see a lot of you that I've seen before again, and nice to meet new people. I'm in West Los Angeles. So you can imagine we get a few characters. But I think the big, we've all dealt with the constant change orders. I think the biggest level of frustration that we get to in our market is that so many of these owners will hire a named designer or a named architect, and then they hire them for a very small scope of work. So a very incomplete design development set. And so they get their very, very, very incomplete design development set and they present it to we act as owner's rep and as general contractor and construction manager. It just depends on how we're working. But we get handed that set of plans. Then they hire a local second tier architect to do the construction drawings. And then they hire 3 different engineers and they usually try to skip the interior architecture and wing it on the job site. But the biggest frustration we run into is when you try to marry all those plan sets together. And going in, there's going to be tons and tons of conflicts. And the owners do not want to invest the time or the money to slow down and go fast and get the plans right. So I don't know if that's just a unique thing to our market or if this is something that everybody else is experiencing.
Not unique.
No,
Not unique. No, not at all.
Because
Can
I was
I?
just
Can
going to add. I was just going to add something. It's they have friends that are architects or engineers, and they use them because they're friends, and you can never get anything done.
Oh, and then they have the consultants for their consultants. We literally have our owners show up to construction meetings with 3 or 4 consultants who are literally consultants to consultants. So by the time you cannot make any progress on these jobs because there's way too many cooks in the kitchen, and the owner doesn't understand that before they can go in the ground, they need to work out all these details on the plans.
I think that's an excellent example where this might be what you're saying.
Help me! Help me!
You might be just so frustrated, so frustrated by this exact example that I know a lot of us have experienced. So let's dig into this one. I like this one a lot because this can cause the changes that we were talking about, uncoordinated sets. I like what you said, Kim, around the owners don't want to take the time in order to not only assemble the team, but do the work beforehand that's necessary in order to coordinate the right set of people to do the right steps in order to execute the project well. So,
Can I throw in one more thing?
Absolutely.
Before you elaborate on this? The main source of frustration, well, I mean, obviously we've experienced this. I can tell a lot of you in the room have experienced this. But the biggest point of frustration is they'll hire the famous architect or, famous interior designer, and they say we're hiring them for the editorial because when we list the property, we want to be able to say this is so and so's design. But then they won't even pay for them to consult during the project, or if they do, I've had 3 or 4 of these named designers actually withdraw from the project and tell their owner that they will not allow them to use the name because the project is spinning out of control. So I'm just wondering if anybody else has experienced that.
I'm just laughing to
I guess the
myself. Go
question
ahead,
would be
Michael.
why if you think about it contractually, and I think that's actually on their behalf, because if you're going to say you got to use your name, why wouldn't you put that in the contract up front to say, okay, yes, I'll do it, but then I own all responsibility. I mean, I can tell you, and I'm sure Yosef's going into this, as a big company, you are not going to lend your name unless all my stamps are on that. So I'd actually put it back on them. That seems just like a dumb idea to say, yeah, I'll do it, and then there's no contractual clause to do that.
I
No, I think
100%
Michael.
agree. Go ahead, Yosef.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is they're just using the name to do the design. Again, when you come to owners, they want to know, why are all these inspections required? So that's another one. It's like, why do they need to come to site and inspect? I'm just going to build it as per the drawings, which the engineers are going to have to come and sign it off. You can't pull the wool over their eyes. You've also got you've got the city inspectors as well that are going to sign off the permits. So sometimes I think a lot of the owners think it's an easy ticket just to be able to get the name on the marketing material, but they just don't understand really, what does that mean? It's like, I'm an engineer, so they go, oh, well, you're an engineer, just sign it off. And it's, I'm just like, which engineer do you want me to be today? Because I could be a mechanical, I could be electrical, I could be civil. There's tons of engineers that come to a project, and each one has to sign off and take responsibility for the work they do. And it's just that it's not understanding the process. There's a lot of people getting involved with some of these projects that just don't understand the process and understand the work and what it takes. And going back to when they bring on engineers, I've had problems, I'm even experiencing it now, where you speak to an engineer and there's one engineer that'll bend over backwards for you, another engineer goes, well, that's not in my scope. Well, it's just a little box on a drawing that you need to show, because it's the hydro vault that would like to see throughout all the drawings, but that's not in my scope, so I'm not going to put it. And you're just like, well, it's for the good of the project. When you come on, as a project manager, there's plenty of things that we take on that were not in the scope, but you're trying to get the project finished and you're trying to just work as a team. So it makes it difficult, definitely. And it's all the time.
All right.
Hello?
Yes, Ahmed. Did you have something you wanted to add to Kim's example? I mean, we've been talking about changes particularly, and Kim laid out a really great story that I do want to address. Did you have something specific that you wanted to add on top of that before I address it?
Yes, I was not in the same subject, but I was working with a project. I was the project manager actually for one of those, but I was involved, after all of the documents and all of the designs, have been done and finished, and the contractor was on site actually. And it was an extension and rehabilitation of a major building actually, and especially it's the most changes that I have seen in this project because of the renovations and because of the extensions and the rehabilitation of the whole building, in general. And at that time, I said, if we have built, a new building, it would be better. It's a lot easier, than doing, than renovating this building actually. But this building, has been existing for a long time. Maybe sometimes during late 70s or early 70s. Sometimes it was the early, and there were no records of drawings or in regard to the services which are existing in this building, where there are so many electrical cables running underground. There were so many pipelines, water pipelines, and drainage pipelines there also. And and besides that, we need to combine two buildings actually. It is used to be it's a two building to combine them in one building, and really it was a mess. Whenever you want to excavate, underground, you find all of these cables where they were not showing, and the drawings at all. And that's why, the time, the contractor says, well, there is a claim here. I need to make a variation order here, and then there will be a change for it. And have been involved with so many things, especially mostly electrical cables, drainage, pipelines, water, mostly MEPs, air conditioning existing, and where you combine them with the new ones. It was really a mess, working in that project. It was a hell for me for a year and a half, almost working with so many variations and it took so many time, with the contractors to sit with them and to discuss it with them and to bring the whole thing down, to close the project down, totally financially and technically at the same time. But it was really, a bad experience for me. Well, this is one of the projects that it was, and it was a costly building, it was not very cheap building, but the budget was a little bit high, but it was, I had really, a tough time, in trying to close the project itself.
That's a beautiful example. So, one thing that's common across what's been discussed already, Yosef, Kim, Ahmed, thank you so much for contributing to the conversation and sharing where the pains are coming from. Changes, uh, approaches to hiring uh, a famous architect and almost letting them go throughout the scope of the project, but wanting to take on the credit of their clout, if you will. And then what you're describing sounds, Ahmed, more along the lines of not doing due diligence beforehand. All of these things sound to me like there needed to have been uh, a bit of validation. There needed to have, I don't know if anyone's familiar in this room, there's a concept called a validation study. So, for those of you who are familiar with lean construction and the collaborative contracting method called the integrated form of agreement, I actually was able to finish a validation study on one of our larger projects, which we're actually on hold right now at my employer right now. We conducted a validation study, which allowed for us to hire on lots of consultants, an owner's rep. We hired on an architect who hired on a number of consultants and engineers to inform the design process. We also hired on a general contractor and some primary trades. So, electrical and mechanical. It was going to be an adaptive reuse site and pretty much full gut, 200,000 square feet. And this validation study, all it was meant to complete is to scope the project and get rough order of magnitude cost, rough order of magnitude budget, rough order of magnitude schedule, and do a little bit of due diligence about the structure, evaluate exactly what needed to take place, evaluate what kind of remediation needed to take place, and really establish what we wanted to do. Then we had everything in a nice, completed validation study package with all of these individuals contributing to that package. And we're able to present that for decision making, for the owner to actually make a decision. Right now, the only reason why it's on hold is because we're asking ourselves, we know the full extent of the scope, we know the full extent of the cost, schedule, everything. Do we actually want to move forward with it, a workplace site, workplace location, understanding where we are with flex work and how everything's impacting the workplace? This validation study is very common to collaborative contracting, shared risk, shared reward models, pulled into this integrated form of agreement. You can do this outside of this agreement type. You could do it in design build. You can do a design bid build. You can do this validation study at any point in time. But there are uneducated owners where, to Yosef's point, more owners need to be educated. But I did want to call out that there is a way, and it is getting more commonly done, this validation study, in order for people to scope out projects better. So just wanted to put a little stake in the ground there. If anybody has questions about that, because we've been talking about changes, that's one way to get the changes fewer, because you're establishing the scope much more clearly at an earlier point in time. All right, so questions on that?
I have
I
one.
actually just, oh, sorry, I just want to add one thing that, and it's a slide I present to all my clients, and it basically kind of, and this is what Joseph showed, is it's like this graph that shows design cost, right? And the cheapest is up front, right? As it goes along, it gets more expensive. And this is exactly why you would do that. So what I always say is, for every dollar you spend up front, you save $4 in the back end. I'm Mike, and I'm done speaking.
Thanks, Mike. Who, I think Yosef, Gloria, did you guys have something to say?
I believe Dawn was next. And then this is Gloria. I can hop in after the fact. Dawn, go ahead, sir.
Well, thank you, Gloria. And thank you, Michael. Actually, what I was going to bring up was exactly what you had mentioned about how much a change costs at different time points during the process. And we had a little pamphlet we would have. We were a pre-sale builder for homeowners. And so we had to educate our buyers. And one of the things was, what does it cost to change something at the early stage versus the late stage? And we had this brochure called what does it cost to move a door? And we said, here's what it costs to move it at the drawing stage. And then we said, how much it costs to move it at the framing stage, and which was significantly higher, obviously, to say. And then what it costs to move the door once the MEPs had been installed. And then finally, what the cost was once it was already sheetrocked and trimmed and painted. And I think a lot of times customers were stunned at how much more expensive it was. And it really reinforced the point of how important it is to make those decisions at the earliest possible time. That's all. I'm Don Bowden.
Yeah, so Brittany, this is Gloria. To build on what everybody else has stated, we do a study called a feasibility study, which is effectively a validation study when we are looking at retrofit properties. And, I've done a couple of these recently where I have been the consultant on site. It's actually what we do the most. And it's exactly to Mike's point. I steal his statistics all the time that for every dollar that folks are spending up front for myself, the architect, engineers and other MEPs to come in and, scope out the project, really look at the property before it's even purchased. I mean, that's what the term period is for investors, particularly those in commercial real estate, as well as in the multifamily space. You have this LOI that goes in to purchase the piece of property, and then you have this period of time in which you get to do all your due diligence. And during that due diligence period, you want to hire all the right professionals to come in and do this validation or feasibility study, so that you don't throw money away on things that don't matter, particularly if it's a very large space like the one that you're speaking of, Brittany, which was 200,000 square feet. I was looking at a 40,000 square foot warehouse industrial space here in northern New York earlier last week. And, to us, that's big. It's all relative, right, to the location, and in an urban setting, that's a lot of square footage. So, those feasibility and validation studies can save clients hundreds of thousands, if not millions, ahead of time. And it doesn't really cost that much, but a couple of $1,000s, for them to retain these people and the professionals to come in and really figure out and create a strategy
Yeah.
for the business. Because at the end of the day, the property, the real estate, the development project, the construction project, it's a business, and it's real money, and construction is not cheap. So, it's one thing to change out the backsplash tile in your kitchen. It's another thing to talk about an entire property, or, an entire neighborhood, as Don was stating. So, and I love that he presented, and I'm going to steal that, Don, or borrow it, if you will, where I'm going to create a spreadsheet of how much more it costs depending on the project stage, to do a little change. I remember somebody once asked me to move an outlet, and I did a similar exercise for them. But I really like your upfront, like spreadsheet mapping it out idea. That's brilliant, as my
Well, you're
British
really
friends would say.
you're most welcome to use it any time, because at the end of the day, I think buyers are many times not really informed or aware of what the economic impact is. And let me tell you, changing it at the drawing stage versus changing it after it's already a door is already installed and sheetrocked and trimmed and painted, it's more than 4 times. It's probably more like 40 times, maybe even more than that. So, it just really takes an issue that could be relatively easily addressed at an early stage, and avoiding that tremendous cost and burden and it doesn't have any value. It's something that you spend a lot of money on that's totally unnecessary.
Totally, totally.
That's all.
And Don just go. Well, I've got two things. One is some owners they buy a bit of land and they have their dream, and nothing will ever stop them having that, even if it's even they just won't listen. So they have a piece of land and they go, I'm going to develop such and such, or they don't have any choice. They've got the land and they want to develop it, so you have to find the best possible way to go ahead. So Brittany, when you were saying there's they call it in project management the go no go stage at the beginning, which some people have the luxury of doing, some others don't. Some will just move ahead anyway, and you've just got to give them the best forecast possible. And then just something that's come to mind as well is that we're talking about changes up front. What about all the interfaces? So again, the coordination, we're talking about coordination of design, and the importance of coordinating all the designers up front and having everyone on board up front, even to the stage where you have a GC on board, or somebody that's going to be doing the construction, to let you know that whatever you're designing can be constructed. So I've got experience. I mean, a lot of us have got experience when it comes to just the day-to-day regular kind of construction. But when it starts to get slightly out of the box, it becomes really, really difficult. And I'll give you an example. I was building a substation in San Francisco, and the architect was a very unique architect that the city mandated that we used because it had to fit into the city plan and whatever their vision was with the upgrades of the area. And somebody mandated to have these huge concrete block facades on the side of the building. And it was kind of, nobody really did the due diligence of how to get these things, and everyone thought it'd be okay. And they were manufactured, and by the time they came to site, they were cracked, and it was a nightmare. They couldn't hang them up just because of how big they were. And hindsight, you're sitting there scratching your head. I mean, I came in later on in the project to try and help out, and you're looking like, who made the decision for these to go up? And did anybody ever look at, how heavy these things are and how difficult it is? And it just, again, these kind of discussions at the early stage, and everyone wants to rush through the design very, very quick. And I'm like, it's a lot easier to go through, do due diligence, make sure that you've got supply. Especially now, I'm hearing more and more projects are being held back now because they can't get materials. So it's very, very unique. And again, spend some time. There's unique materials that you can use. You got to think lumber's expensive. There's others. I'm listening now to people that are doing decking, polymer, recycled plastic decking that lasts a lifetime. It wasn't feasible. It is feasible now because lumber's so expensive. So just to spend that extra bit of time to go through the drawings and make sure that the interfaces are all okay, and make sure, and as a project manager, that's the job, to bring everyone together and make sure that we've discussed everything. But just to spend that little bit of extra time up front saves you so much more down the line. I am done speaking.
Love
If
it.
I can
Really
add just
quick, Michael, let me just reset the room. We've been here for a little bit over a half hour, and then I'll pass the ball to you. I do want to give others an opportunity to speak who've been up on stage after you share, Michael. So really quick, today we are discussing developer owner caused construction pains. Owners cause the pains quite a lot. We've talked about change orders, which effectively cause headaches. We've talked about hiring architects, and they might be big names, and wanting the clout of that, and how that sometimes causes challenges if they somehow leave on the latter end of the design, and it causes coordination problems. We've talked about the lack of feasibility studies being done, and walking into design and construction without knowing what you're walking into. Those cause pains. And we've talked about some of the solutioning, which ultimately is start doing some feasibility studies, start doing some reviews, and validate what your scope is. Get it documented. Start getting everything estimated, your schedule, your budget. Understand what the risks are for your project. Those kind of things can really set owners up for success. And for those of you who supply services or even materials, these are the kinds of things that you can recommend to your owners if you get in front of them early enough. But as an owner, this is something that's very important to get these kinds of things established. It can make things go so much more smoothly. I'm Brittanie Campbell-Turner. We are from the Prop Tech Club and chiming in the Everything Construction Club. Very excited to be here today. But with that, just want to roll right back into the conversation. Michael, you were going to add something. Please go ahead now.
Yeah, so when Joseph was talking about the engineering phase, it's so important before we hand the stuff off to construction is to make sure we do have during the design aspect someone who understands construction reviewing the drawings. A lot of times the engineers that sit behind the desk have never been in the field. They'll go ahead and do that, and we'll call like pencil whipping or doing it from a desktop and then going out to the field. And so it's so important to have, to what Joseph was talking about, collaboration, where both an engineer and someone with construction knowledge can actually sign off on that before it goes to the field. I'm Mike, and I'm done.
Such great points, Michael. Thank you for contributing with that. Those of you who have hopped up on stage, I know we've had a few that are fellow moderators. Coralie, you've been up here for a little while. 10K cards, welcome. You've been on the stage for a little bit. Amarali, you are a frequent room participant in the Prop Tech Club, and I've been always tending to call you, the construction pains data resource because of the research that you've done in this space. So, we also have that expertise from here. I haven't heard you chime in quite yet, Christina, and then Jessica. So, if those of the moderators have anything to chime in here and share, I do want to hear from you, and obviously we want to hear if there are specific construction pains you've experienced, and if you can give a specific example. So, looks like Amarali.
Can I go next?
Yeah,
Sure. Can I go next? Can you guys hear me fine?
we can hear you. And then Coralie, it looks like you were coming off mute as well. So I'll get you next after Amarali.
Oh, thank you, Brittany, Marcus, and everyone else in the room. Before I start, if you can look at my DP, that's sort of what we, for anyone who doesn't know about the cost of change, of how drastically the cost of change increases. So you can look at my, you can PTR, look at my display picture. That's how much impact a change has when you're not in the design phase. Either you're in the construction, or even worse, you're almost at the end of the construction phase. That's how much impact does it has, and the ability to make decisions or changes actually decreases. Um, that's what a lot of people don't talk about, and that's sort of what we need to convey to the client, the owner, is that you cannot make a change because the impact, the choices that you have decreases drastically. You don't have much options after things are 80 or 70% complete. So that's one thing that I wanted to start off with. The next thing, I think I heard a lot of people talking about change orders and how those impact the project, detrimentally, right? But what we don't understand is that these change orders are essentially coming from um, a number of various issues on a project, literally day-to-day issues that are on a project. And when you accumulate those all together, you have one change order, and then you have various change order occurring at different stages of a project. So if you can, or when I say you, if the project team can somehow document those issues, try to be more proactive, try to communicate those issues that are popping up either in the construction or in any other phase to the entire project team. Have a resolution on that, or a planned resolution on that. Assign it to someone so that they are responsible to mitigate or resolve that issue. Those you would see that impact the project cost growth, because we're all working towards certain KPIs, and majority of the time cost and schedule growth are the primary KPI. So once you do that, you would see those issues impacting the cost and schedule not exponentially, and therefore you will see the cost growth, or sorry, the change orders not impacting the project. And it just comes back to that mindset, or proactive mindset, that one needs to be. And everything, every problem that I'm hearing here sort of goes back to good or best practices in project management, right? I mean, if you implement like issue log, I mean, if you just make a habit on your project to have a good issue log. I mean, you don't even project control. I mean, there are numerous project control tools that one can use on a project. Just implementing one tool that is issue log, it can go a long way. And I'm not saying it. I'm definitely saying it because I practice what I preach, but I have data to back it. That's primarily what I was doing for the past 5 years while I was an owner rep for numerous clients. That's exactly, and that's the same pattern. I mean, I can get into the specifics of the study, but you see the same pattern again and again and again and again in every project that you do. And in that pattern, what you mostly see is the owner internal issues and owner scope changes contributing the most to the project cost and schedule growth again and again and again and again. Yet we're fine with it. I mean, we're like, yeah, it happens. This is sort of normalized, right? I mean, nobody talks about it. It's normalized. Everyone's like, oh, this is how the project is run. But I tend to disagree with that. And I said that there are things that you could implement. There are certain best practices that you can implement on your project. And I'm not saying that you have to be an Einstein um, to make your project successful. Small things as small as implementing a good issue log. I mean, that's not a hard thing. You do that, and I can assure you with a good certainty that you would be able to resolve not just that you would be able to document issues, but you would be able to resolve it because these issues would be popping up on your screen time and again. This needs to be resolved. It's a constant nag. It's the universe telling you you need to do this in order to make the project successful. And there's more to it. I can even go into depth of it, but yeah, that's the gist of what I talk.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Emirali. Yes, yes. I mean, you're such a like I mentioned when I introduced you, you are such a resource when it comes to data and construction challenges. And then you have the experience to back it up from an application standpoint. I recommend if anybody wants to dig into that resource to touch base with Emirali. We have the back channel here. I think that he certainly can speak to that data, just like how Don a little bit earlier, who was on stage, was saying. um, I like to show my owners this is the cost of a change early on in the project. This is the cost later on. Emirali has that kind of data available, and he's certainly a great resource for that. So, with that, Coralie, I know you had something to share.
I was going to just, in addition to agreeing with a lot of the things that are already being said with regards to the changes and the lack of knowledge and all these things that are these owner created pains, one that I really experienced often was in many different forms and platforms and areas was the decision making, waiting for, when they say, oh, I don't like this and a change is going to come, they let you know, but this has to change. However, what it is that they want it to change to, it might just start with that, or it might be something early on where we were a mechanical contractor. They might take weeks and months to come up with a fixture list, and we can't rough in valves until we know what the fixtures are going to be. So it's like these delays that were painful to just be waiting and waiting. There's nothing you can do. It holds up the project. It delays everything, increases the cost, but yet they expect you to still do your work for the amount of money that you agreed to, but they aren't making the decisions in a timely manner. I remember when I worked with homeowner associations and rehabbing buildings, and it would be something as simple as a color. They'd even have an architect, but yet you have to get the whole homeowner association involved, and it takes way too long to be making these otherwise simple decisions. I mean, it helps if you have somebody, who's an owner's rep, but often, they don't come in, they bring them in too late, or they, instead of having too many professionals, they don't have enough professionals to guide them. There's just, the whole decision-making process is just prolonged. That was probably one of my biggest pain points, I think, in my experience. I'm Coralie, and I'm finished speaking.
Coralie, months to make a decision? What the? That's ridiculous.
When they have to commit to a tub that they're going to have to look at for the next number of years, and then they have way too much money to, and they have all these choices. It's ridiculous. I tell you, I don't know how many times we've waited way too long for a fixture list to be finalized before we can start installing. It's ridiculous.
Again, not uncommon. Oh man, yeah. And for me, having worked in commercial, both on the public and private side, it's about setting those expectations early again. And it's tough, especially in residential, to say, okay, well, I need this decision by in order for you to have your project done by X date, right? Which is what you've asked me to do. And it's about putting that on a schedule, giving them those deadlines early on for them to really understand what those decision points are that are really important. But yeah, it's a tough thing to do. Sometimes the decision itself, their attachment to it is that much more important sometimes, and that prolongs the project, that increases cost because of increased general conditions and prolonged consulting costs. And they're not recognizing how much of an impact. Maybe the client is just balling and they don't care, but that's unlikely the case in a lot of our cases. So really, really good one, Corley. I appreciate that call out. All right, 10K cards. Did you have any that you wanted to add to the discussion? I'm not sure we can hear you well. You're cutting out.
Sean, you have your headset on. We can't hear you.
All right, we're gonna move on. 10K cards because we can't hear you. Maybe next when you get to a point in time where you no longer have your headset on. Okay.
I have a question.
I have Hind who just came off mic. I would love for her to contribute here after 10K comes off.
When I'm on a stage like this, I
I don't know how to mute him. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I'm so sorry, Brittany.
I'm
I've been
trying
trying to
mute
as well.
Yeah, there's glitches with this.
because
It's not letting you mute him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So
Gotta love
Hand,
technology. It's like project management.
a little bit.
We love you, 10K, though. That's his name is Sean, and I'll bring him back up on stage. He sent me a text message that he has a weak signal. But we love you, Sean. I just moved you to the audience because we have no clue how to mute you, even though we're all in technology and construction here. Brittany, mic back to you.
Thanks so much, Gloria. And Sean, thanks for wanting to contribute here. And maybe at some point we'll get a chance to hear what you have to say. Hand, you came off mic. What did you have to say?
I would like to speak about an experience I had. I was working with a contractor. We were actually doing the finishing part of the project. I was an assistant project manager, and the problem that we faced was there that the owner, or maybe the owner's team, thought that appointing each contractor as a separate entity would be cheaper for the project, and the main team who's responsible for coordination between all these teams were the owners reps. So we were the finishing contractor, and other contractor had the MEP services, and a third contractor had the electrical services. So we had a great problem coordinating between the three of us, and we will have to reach first for the owners team, and they were not available 24/7, and the projects were fast tracked. So that was the main issue there, that they didn't put someone who's responsible for the whole team. We will have to reach for the owners rep, and they weren't available the whole time.
hand, that sounds like such a painful situation. But thank you for sharing that. And it's back to procurement, right? It's back to how are you bringing on um, people onto the project, skilled people who are experts in their fields in a way where they can do their best work. When the work isn't coordinated by a single point of contact, that can be a challenge.
Yeah, actually, some other thing that two of the company, MEP and electrical services, actually were both subsidiary of the main company. So this is another issue.
Yeah, gets into some interesting complications there with that coordination. Okay, really interesting. So, Don, I know you've chimed in a little bit already. Christina, did you have something you wanted to share, an example, and then we'll come back around to you, Kim?
Hey there. Right now, I'm just kind of listening. So I'm owner of a residential roofing and exteriors company. So it's interesting to kind of hear some of the pain points of things. But we do some new construction homes for some residential builders, and I don't feel the extent of it. I think a lot of your projects are a lot bigger, but the change orders, the incorrect plans, I can feel those, but I think, like I said, it's on a much smaller level. We've ran into issues where on the plans, when you're looking at material, the measurement is not go to the job site and find out that I'm short and 8 to 12 weeks first place, and now I have to send my team back out there once the new stuff gets in. So I can understand, but I think it's more on a microscopic level.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, to your point, it's a trickle it can become a trickle down effect that has a larger impact when it comes to suppliers or having the right amount of people on site in order to support the work that you plan to do once the change comes down the line, but totally understand. There is something to the magnitude of projects that makes the changes different. Um, not worse or better, but different, because they all are pains ultimately. But thank you for that, Christina. All right, Kim, you had something to chime in with.
Actually, I have a question to the group here. In our world, luxury home building, we group this under pre-construction planning, the feasibility studies. Um, and I just wondered, how are you guys charging? Are you charging on an hourly basis? Are you doing it for a fixed cost? How are you doing it?
Gloria, Yosef, any other owners reps want to chime in on that first? How are you charging for the feasibility study?
Oh, is that? Yeah, I missed the question. So it depends, and it. So I was thinking about that earlier on when you were asking what you're saying it. So it depends on which kind of project you're rolling out. So a lot of the times the feasibility is done beforehand. So what I try and do is, as a project manager, I try and get involved with the owner as early as possible. So really, when they've started to develop a piece of land, because that's the time that the feasibility study goes in. Definitely, a lot of owners bring in project managers or owners reps. It's a lot later on, and the design's been completed. So it is difficult at that stage to really do a feasibility study, but it can be done. It just depends on which contract you set up. There's a lot of ways I work with a contractors open book in the sense of, especially when it comes to like custom home building. So, and it's now I know a lot of contractors that are using this kind of model in Canada, where they basically say we take a percentage or they take a monthly retainer fee, and then everything else is really much open book to the client. So what they do is they go out and they get quotations. They get like 3 quotations. So really, when you're doing the feasibility, it's when you're planning and putting all of that in place, you can do the feasibility study then. I know when Brittany was talking about feasibility study, that's even upfront when owners are looking at what is their return on investment at early stages. So it just depends. It all depends in which kind of a project you're involved with, because some people will go, they're going to go ahead with the project anyway. It's just a matter as a project manager just trying to save the money and trying to make the process as smooth as possible, and then trying to find them the best quality for the price that they want. So it's a bit of a difficult question without knowing exactly which project you're talking about.
Yeah, so this is Gloria. Brittany, to build on that, it's going to be a very similar answer for myself as well. So we get brought in sometimes by the realtors, and that is typically my preference, or the bankers and asset managers to come in and do a feasibility study before they purchase the building. Typically, what we'll do is we'll partner with an architect or an engineer or both, depending on the project. And then we'll also charge either an hourly rate or a per project rate, depending on how many hours we think it'll cost between inspections, photos, etc., to put the full report together. And what I like to do is if they do purchase the building after the fact, what I do is I take those project fees, and my team and I take those project fees and those fees that we build up front for the feasibility study, and we just lump it into the project cost because it includes some of the pre-planning already for them. And then, if they don't purchase the building, they spent a couple $1,000s or however much it cost, maybe it was a lot more than that because it took us 3 months or however long. So it really depends on how in depth the study is as well. And I won't mention any names, but, there's people here on Clubhouse and, even in this room where I've gone and looked at a building before for them and, just provided a very rough cost estimate of, okay, this is what it might cost on a price per square foot without us even touching any walls or anything on a visual, it's going to be about 300 a square foot or 200 a square foot to renovate or gut this space, and then we can kind of get into the nitty and gritty if the owners decide to do so. And that's when we start to charge. But really, each project is unique because it also depends on the area. If I'm going to do a feasibility study in New York or in a city like Chicago, where Mike is, or any other large city where you have municipalities that have very strict code, then, it's going to be a lot deeper than, let's say, Dallas, Texas, or Houston, Texas, where I've also done work and know that, I don't have any zoning laws to deal with, and the code is not as strict in terms of building because of maybe their weather patterns, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things that go into play. I would say that that's a whole room and maybe an entire series in itself. I hope that helped answer the question. This is Gloria, and I'm complete.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Before I answer, I'm going to reset the room really quick. So again, I'm Brittanie Campbell-Turner, CEO and founder of Constructor. That's Construct double R. Marcus is my not only my husband, but he is my partner in crime in the business as well. We are talking about developer owner caused pains, construction pains particularly. Lots of us are working in the industry and in one role or another. We are from the Prop Tech Club. So if you're interested in these conversations, we typically talk about this topic, particularly on Tuesday evenings at 5 Central. So if you're interested in joining those conversations, just find Prop Tech at the bottom of my profile and follow that club if you're interested in participating on Tuesday evenings, 5 p.m. Central. But we are reaching around the hour mark. I am happy and excited to continue. I'm really excited that we've been able to do this room in the Everything Construction Club. If you haven't followed this club yet, go ahead and hit the house at the top and follow the club and future rooms. So I'm going to actually just really quickly answer this question. Let's see. Is she even still in the room? Oh no. I think Kim had to go. Whatever the case, I'll still answer the question. For the project that I just mentioned earlier, when we did the validation study, we did open book as well. But what we did was we gave a couple options. We talked about doing a fixed fee per month, depending upon the scope, and we also considered doing open book, like what exactly, how many hours you expect for this to this actual validation study to take month by month. And we actually just had them charge exactly the hours that they spent. So ultimately, we didn't ever go over the value that that we got from them in a not to exceed contract. So that was that. All right. So Ahmed, thank you for contributing a little bit earlier. Chantel, you haven't had an opportunity to speak. Thank you for being patient. But you are here up on the stage. If you want to quick introduce yourself and share your comment on a construction pain, or if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you.
Hey everyone, my name is Chantel, and I'm a newbie real estate developer here in Austin, Texas. I actually just completed my first new construction residential property, and I'm about to get into my second one. So when I joined the room, I was just interested in, just learning from other developers in the industry. As far as pains, I will say that my first project, it nearly drove me crazy. Everything that could possibly have gone wrong went wrong. I found myself putting out so many different fires, so many from the plans not matching up to what needed to be on the job site to just managing my subcontractors. It was a really, really pain in my, you know what. But I got through it, and
Pain in
even
your
though
what?
in my you know what, pain in my you know what, but even though I got through it and it was so stressful, it's crazy that I'm still ready to get into another one. So yeah, I'm just here to listen and learn and network. I'm a newbie, so I'm absorbing all of the content and information that you guys are giving, all of the value.
Hey, Chantal, I have a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
How many of those issues and problems did you document?
Um, Honestly, I did not well, I filmed the entire process from beginning to end. Like I had a film crew that followed me throughout the beginning of the and to the end of it. So I have everything on recording that happened.
Got it. I mean, the only reason I asked, excuse me, is this because um, could be a good point for the entire group is it's so important that if you document these issues or any problems, as a matter of fact, um, it just becomes a historical information for your organization or for your entity. And the next time you do a project, you know a bit better. That's sort of the concept of organizational knowledge. And you don't realize. I mean, we don't realize, but it just makes so much sense because um, you have that documented, and you have the most probable resolution or the most probable or the path of least resistance noted down. The next time you do it, well, I've been here before. I'll do this, and this will help me. So that's another really good practice to sort of mitigate our.
Man, I love that question, Amarale. And Chantel, it's not too late. It's not too late to document these things. There's something that I've done in all my that's a lie, not all my projects. I've made it a practice for myself to do on projects as well as my project management team. I'd ask them to do lessons learned, document the challenges that were faced in the different phases of the project. What were the problems in design? Write that down. Also, write down what could you have done better. Always have a list of what went well, what didn't go so well, and what are your recommendations for next time. Ask for that from your architect. Ask for that from your general contractor. Your points of contact who you work with closely, have an hour meeting with them and say, look, let's just document these lessons learned because I want to work better with the people that I work with on the next project. If it's you, if it's a different set of consultants that I'm working with, I want it to be a better experience. The moment you have a moment to just reflect and make a better plan for next time, it will do you some real good. So thanks for that, Amarali. Chantel, I hope that's valuable to you in your next project.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Just another thing I wanted to share, like for me being a newbie in the industry, I'm still learning as I go. So I know like the fundamentals of the concept of construction, but I'm never gonna know everything, right? And so sometimes I have to lean on to my subcontractors to kind of guide me in certain, areas. For example, my plumber. When he originally ran his lines in the home, he didn't go. I was up 3 stories, so he never ran them up, right? And so I called in for my siding guy to come and put the siding. No, I think the plumber put his lines up, and then the siding guy came in. And so what I noticed was that we had a lot of different leaks in the home because of it. And so in that situation, like my plumber was telling me like, oh no, I have to go um before your guy comes in, because we had a conversation. And so it was just hard. I went through a lot of stuff.
You know what? And there's so many minds in this room that could really answer that question, honestly. But if you can at all possible, this is something that really lends to the last planner system. If you're not familiar with that, I know it's not as common in residential, but it is shaking the construction industry. If you can literally have your trade contractors, the ones who are going to be planning their phase of work and or doing the work, get them on a call in a room and talk about the sequence of events that needs to take place in order for them to coordinate together. No one person is ever going to know exactly what one trade is going to need over another. Each person is the master of their own craft. If two people can coordinate themselves, yes, you can monitor, document, that kind of stuff. That's going to be helpful. But if you can get them talking to each other, that by all means will be that much more helpful. So if you haven't heard of the last planner system, I recommend you dig into that. Somebody else
Yes,
have
I
something
will.
to chime in?
Yeah, and I'll send you a message now for that information, Brittany. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Gloria, did you have something else you wanted to chime in with?
Yeah, I just wanted to say so much gold in this room this evening. And, I'm so happy that we decided to do this Monday. We've had so many people in and out this evening. And, I just really appreciate you for putting this together on such short notice, and for everybody who's contributed to today's amazing conversation. So I really just want to say thank you. I'm here listening in the background, and if I flash my mic, I'll have a thing or two to say, but, I'll let you keep going, and let's get through some of these other folks on the stage.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Glory. It has been fun for me too. I am just so appreciative of all of the questions and comments that have been coming through. Just a really quick again, to just reset the room, but I'll reset it again. We're just discussing owner caused pains, and we're hearing so many good pains to uncover them so that we could find solutions for the individuals who are experiencing them. There's lots of ways to do things a little bit smarter, just a little bit better, have continuous improvement, step by step, baby steps, and they will allow you to feel more fulfilled day by day as you go through your construction projects. So we do have Jessica on stage, who's after Chantel. Jessica, you've been up on stage here for a while. Thank you for your patience. Would you share a little bit about yourself and share your comment or question?
Yeah, hi guys. No problem. This has been really awesome, actually. I'm from San Diego, so I really resonated with the the change and the multiple consultants, and that's actually why I raised my hand. Um, it's interesting. A lot of what I was going to say has already been said by Michael and Amarelli. I would just maybe second some of that, like what came up for me while I was listening to this is kind of in the beginning, if you have ever gone to school for any of this or even self-taught through books, I think one of the most common things that is harped is to pay attention always to your time value cost. What are you giving and what are you getting in return? But I think a big part that's missing is just the understanding, because I have been on the homeowner side as well, and I don't think there's anyone that doesn't want to get something for the best price. Nobody wants to pay for a service or an item twice, and most homeowners want their construction and project completed as fast and as cheaply as possible. So I really try to keep that in mind at all times. And going back to what Amirali was saying, what really changed my business for me and my stress point when I have what I call, a bad relationship or a relationship go bad, is that it is the best teaching point that I could ever have. Rather than hiring a business consultant to figure out what's going wrong or what I'm not doing right, those are the moments that really teach me where I need to step up my communication and what I'm not explaining maybe properly to my clients. So I think it's really them telling you, like, I didn't understand this and now I'm frustrated. And so I always have one of the first questions I ask in my interview phone calls is if someone has worked with the designer before. And if they say yes, I casually ask, why they aren't working with that person again. And there's plenty of good reasons for that. But there's also red flag answers. And that goes into bringing in multiple consultants or having multiple architects. It's not to say that there are people that can't be pleased. There's always somebody out there that's a good fit for them. But I always try to explain to my clients that part of my job is to make sure we're a good fit and to get their project done as smoothly, as fastly, and on budget as possible. And so I try to be really upfront in the very beginning about scope creep and double charging. I really liked the idea of explaining right away, like, hey, if you want to move this door right now, it's basically free. But if you want to move that when we have got framing and a level 3 drywall on, you could have bought that Gaggenau fridge for that price. So I really like that. I'm definitely gonna take that idea and run with that. I might even make a poster for some of the most common changes. But I don't know. I just the contractual things. I really my worst experiences have taught me so much about my first meetings with clients and how I really try to communicate. I'm not ever going to be the person trying to tell you can't bring in this architect or we can't change those plans in the middle because I'm being a bad guy. I am here for your best interest. And I really try to set that tone right away. And it seems to be quite helpful. It's not a fail proof, but I always try to look at those experiences that go bad as a teaching opportunity, as hard as that may be. And I'm done.
Just gonna add something very little here, very small here. Um, Jessica, you just talk about the interviews. I cannot stress much how important the interviews are. And for the numerous interviews that I've conducted, because I was working as an owner's rep primarily in the procurement department for many clients, we for the first couple of questions, one of the first two questions that we asked from the project manager basically, or from any technical lead, was, why did your company choose you for this role? And the other one, somewhere in the middle of the interview, we would literally ask them to get up, give them a board, and tell them to map out the entire project. And we're currently working on trying to figure out how that affects the project. But I can assure you, just working with these projects, you can tell who knows a lot about the project, because in that time we've had project managers come up, lay out not just the entire plan, but they would even lay out the issues and risks that would occur or might occur in that time frame, and that just helps you so much. That's only.
And I'll add one other thing to the interview comment that you made, Jessica. The interview is not just for the consultants to be hired with, right? It's also consultants interviewing clients to make sure they are the right fit to work with you. And I love the relationship focus. What you said about learning from issues and relationships, and not to take this to our lean construction roundtable conversations that we do on Thursday, but relationships and culture is such an important component of how um, construction projects can be successful. Um, Focusing on relationships, not just in construction, but in your daily life and learning from those pains, learning from those issues, that can just get you so far. So, meaning you can learn a lot from those and really improve as a human being if you just paid attention to problems that you have in relationships. So, so that being said, I just love that you had that comment, Jessica. That was lovely. So, yeah, this has been so good. I know, Jessica, you you were sharing about your oh, I lost my train of thought, guys. I apologize. But I do know there was someone after Jessica, and we just lost them. But whatever the case might be, I've been having a really, really great time here on the stage with everyone. I I have thoroughly just enjoyed the beautiful minds, the wisdom that have come from the moderators in this room. We have been here for about an hour, hour and a half. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and close up the room. But if there are any of you who are really excited about this conversation and want to participate, please send me a message in the back channel. I am doing these conversations every Tuesday in the Prop Tech Club. And so I'd love to have you participate, but also learn a little bit more about your pains that you're experiencing so that we can drive the conversation in that direction as well. If you
So
haven't,
Brittany,
yeah, Joseph, go
yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to jump in before you close. So two things. So one is it's interesting because I saw something, I think it was today, where they were saying that it's really easy to get knowledge these days. I think it was a LinkedIn, a post on LinkedIn. And it's funny to see how the only way you become a good project manager, a good representative, is to have those years of experience and go through that pain. And people think that they can just sit down in a library and get the project management tools together, which is one way to do it, but you're not going to become a proficient project manager until you actually go through the pains yourself and have all those have experience doing that. So I think it's, everyone that's going through all this as part of construction, that's the learning and that's the value that you give to your clients and owners is all that experience. When somebody hires me, they hire me for the 20 years of experience, not because I've passed the PMP exam. So that was the first thing. And then the other thing, and now I've also lost my train of thought. Oh, lessons learned. So lessons learned. So I work for large organizations, and the battle was always lessons learned stick with you and your project. And I'm not sure how technology will help us with this, to try and help educate the lessons learned. Because what happens is that they go so everybody does a lessons learned, you write up exactly what you've done and how you've sorted it out, and then you put it in a database. And the idea is that before the next project comes along, or as you're tendering for the next project, you go through your lessons learned. And the difficulty was always to find the right lessons learned, because there are always slight nuances with certain projects. So it's difficult. So one of the things that we started to do was have, and this is where Clubhouse comes into itself. It's kind of, we had the forum within in-house with the project managers once a month. And we would go through and somebody would bring up one or two lessons learned every month. So then it would get shared throughout the team and people didn't have to spend that much time looking through databases to find lessons learned. And this is, as I'm saying, where Clubhouse comes in, is that we can share lessons learned between organizations, especially independent consultants and owners representatives. We can discuss these here, which is a great tool, and especially technology now helps us do that. So just one of the things I always find is how to get lessons learned, how to make lessons learned useful, and they don't just get stored somewhere in a database. I am done speaking.
I love that, Yosef, which is why we have the Prop Tech Club. We talk about how technology can help. So appreciate that. Gloria.
Yes, this is Gloria. Just wanted to wrap up and, go full circle exactly what you said. I told you you were my curly-headed Caribbean twin. You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, and that is exactly why the Prop Tech Club exists. We here at Everything Construction, met Brittanie and Marcus via the, internet spheres here on Clubhouse, and we love their club and we want to help them grow. So we invited them into our club today for this pop-up room, and it has been amazing. So I hope you make this a regular appearance and we can coordinate something to cross-pollinate and have rooms in each other's clubs and continue to grow and collaborate. If you have not followed Brittanie as of yet, and Marcus, who has been very, very quiet. Marcus, are you breathing? Flash your mic if you're still breathing. No, not breathing. Oh, he's breathing. All right. Just checking. Just wanted to make sure Marcus was there. All right. So, please follow Brittanie and Marcus. They are the owners of Constructor. Brittanie has been recording this conversation. You can follow her and go get on her YouTube or DM her for all of the links. Also, make sure that you scroll all the way down to the bottom of her profile and follow the Prop Tech Club, or again, hit her up on the back channel and she will send you a direct link. They have regular conversations about this on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I know they also have a morning room and they do pop-up rooms here and there. You'll see them in the hallways. We thank you so very much for being in the Everything Construction Club this evening. If you are in the audience and this is the first time that you're in our club, I'd like to thank you for being here today. Please follow myself and Yosef. We created this club as an online community where owners, developers, owner representative, general contractors, tradespeople, prop tech folks, blockchain, all of the things, everybody could just get together and have conversations about how we could just make our construction sites a better place to be. So if you love construction, if you love real estate, new development, all that stuff, please follow me. Please follow Yosef. Please follow our club. Follow us on all social media platforms to stay up to date on upcoming rooms. And Brittanie, back to you. Thank you so much, my dear. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so very much for that conclusion, Yosef and Gloria. Just want to thank the moderators again on the stage, Michael, Coralie, Amarali. Thank you for your contribution. Hind, Don, Christina, Ahmed. Thank you so much for what you've contributed as well. Everyone in the audience, we appreciate you. Thank you for listening into the conversation. With that. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to having you participate in our conversations moving forward, both in the Everything Construction Club. And if you guys do have a chance to join the Prop Tech Club and are interested in those conversations, happy to have you there. With that, we are closing out the room. Have a good night, everybody. All right, I'm ending the room.
I have got to get one of those boards. It's over. Either that or you have to follow me around everywhere I go. It's one or the other.
I was looking at them on Amazon. I mean, I've been looking at since Joe mentioned them, and I was looking at the reviews.
Oh yeah, it's too much fun. You guys need to get one.
I know.
All right, guys. Thank you.
We got about 3 regulars in the club that have one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.